Hey class, this is Katrina Berg, your instructor. I wanted to take a minute and go over some items in chapter 6. It's not part of your assigned reading, but this video will be an additional resource for you. And just so that you're aware of some key points in the chapter, it's something that is part of the marketing discussion and something that you probably are already aware of. And those three key points relate to the global market, ethics, and sustainability. Marketing, when you're looking at it from a global perspective, changes a bit. You have some different challenges that you're going to encounter as you look into moving into regional markets, even international and global markets. You're going to have things that come up, such as cultural issues, language barriers, and something as simple as even product size. For example, in the US here, we tend to buy larger quantities of items, whereas maybe in Europe or even in emerging markets, you're going to want smaller quantities because the storage space isn't there necessarily, and the use of the product, the money that you would pay up front, let's say for something you buy at Costco versus just buying a single one item. So again, just some things to think about when you're looking at marketing through a global perspective. You're also going to possibly encounter some laws that might matter. Again, going back to culture and how things are viewed, there was an ad that was shown in Europe but was pulled in the US market because it was deemed too racy. Too much skin was shown in the ad. Another thing that you're going to look at, going back to emerging markets, is the availability of data and how you're going to gather that data on your demographic market, your target market. The traditional sources that we might use to gather that information aren't available. And then also your channels of how you're going to get the message to your consumer about your product or service. We generally here would use TV, radio, social media. Well, what are you going to do if your consumer doesn't have those things? How are you going to reach them? So you have to think of new and innovative ways to reach out to your customer when you're looking at global marketing. Another point that I want to bring up is looking at ethics and how that matters to your company, how you're going to portray your company. The consumer today, there's more transparency than ever, and there's more of an expectation of transparency. Some companies pride themselves on ethics, and their consumers also purchase from them specifically for that. So could that be a competitive advantage? Yes. And you as a company, you as a marketing team, need to think about that and be aware of what your positioning is on that internally and externally. Wells Fargo is an example of a company where trust had been broken. They had pushed their sales team to open more and more accounts, and some of their staff decided to open accounts that were fraudulent or used consumer information without permission. This created a trust issue in the company, and especially in the banking industry, that's a problem. So again, you as a marketing team are going to have to address that issue now. Finally, let's talk about sustainability. We're looking here more and more of a trend of expectation that there is a corporate policy on sustainability, that you, in connecting with your consumers, are considering that. You, as creating your product, are also aware of sustainability. That means doing the right thing. You'll also hear it as corporate responsibility or being green. Even considering your vendors. Are your vendors green? Does it matter to you or your clients? It can also relate to workforce education and training. How are you managing and treating your staff? And it can involve local community. So you as a company are in a community, you have stakes down there, you pay staff, employees that pay mortgages. what is your role as a company and what is your role as a marketer in that community? What message are you sending? Are you giving out awards and checks to local nonprofits, for example? Walmart is a great example of that. They have tried to build their image instead of being this corporate behemoth that has overtaken the small town store. They are giving back to their communities through donations. So again, that's just a very brief overview of some key points in chapter 6. And I do want you to be aware of each of these as you come up with your marketing plan and as you go through the course. Again, look at global markets. Marketing is impacted by this. Ethics and sustainability. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for listening.